Has there been a question I haven't answered yet?
You have answered all of them. Yeah, I've answered all of them.
Oh.
Yes. It's only that we don't know the other side, what you talked about, how you answered.
So it's interesting. You can always answer a question, but what the answer is something that I can control.
Yes, there can be three answers to one question. So you get to choose which one is most appropriate.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. They say the preferred one, the true one, and
You can say what people want you to say.
yes.
You can say the truth, or you can just change the subject. But you don't have to say I won't answer the question. You've got three different choices you can make.
Yes. Okay. I think I want to talk about the issues to do with the team. I saw you are also big and in that area.
Yeah.
Building teams and getting to, I don't know, I want to understand how you do it so that I can help myself also in that area.
I know, right? And I think it's really important because, you know, so growing up in the United States, we wind up with a lot of education that talks about how important it is for the individual to have freedoms and access and abilities and that sort of thing. And what we forget is that we're really designed to be in community. Like, we weren't designed to be just alone, right? And so when we start to look at that, and we look at that from a business perspective, that's one reason, by the way, that I think it's hard to work from home all the time, because if you're not with other people, there's a hole that starts to form and it can grow and grow and grow. So community is important, and I learned that early on in business. But I also have a curiosity, and I think it's the curiosity in me that got me into understanding and studying teams and team behavior. And as we moved from where I was in the beginning of my career, which was much more of a project-based structure, we were all about creating a very rigid plan, start and end, mapping out all of the points in between. We moved from that into what has now become more of what they call an agile concept. And that's not just software development, but that's just a methodology for a lot of different things. But the idea that you're constantly reassessing and declaring new values for things as you go forward. So you may move yourself very differently today through a program than you did before, where you were going to go, whether you were succeeding or not, you would go right through it. So when I look at that now in this agile methodology, I love and I'm fascinated with how I watch people engage with each other in this concept. And it's very difficult for people to see and understand it if you're used to sort of, you start at the beginning. Okay, the 100-meter dash is a straight line. I've not seen an Olympics where there's any curve in the 100-meter dash, right?
Yeah.
But real life really never has a 100-meter dash, right? And so when I look at those two, I think, okay, it's great for us to educate and train the individuals to be better team members as we move forward. So how did I get myself into it? I became a manager of teams, and I was very bad at it because there's something called the Peter Principle, which you can Google if you want at some point down the road. But the idea there is that you typically, as a company, you'll promote somebody one level higher than they probably should be as a manager, because you promote based on their performance, not based on their ability. And so it's called the Peter Principle. And so if I'm a good salesman, you're going to make me the manager of sales. But I'm actually great at going and selling things. I'm not really good at managing people, right? So I'm not going to succeed there, where I was very successful over here. So when I was put into management initially, I was very bad at it. And I had to learn, because if I wasn't going to learn how to be a manager, I was going to fail very badly. And so I started to experiment and to try different things. And I started to read. And what I learned was that most people didn't know. And my family are a bunch of teachers. We love to teach. And so I thought, if there's something that I've learned, it's important for me to share it. And so I started to share it with people that we were with. And when I shared with them, then they would share with me. And then we started to build a community where we were just sharing with each other. And now the world is really good about understanding that there are ways to test and experiment. You know, Generation Z or Z, the one that's coming up right now, they're all about experimentation and trying and experience learning. We were taught theoretically, so we read it in books, right? Whereas today, the opportunity is really to reach into the world and try something. Be in a sandbox, do something and learn from it. And I love helping groups learn how to do that as a team, because we're built differently. I bring some really good benefits in certain areas, and I'm not positively contributing in others, like time management, for example. So I find people coming together in groups can be very helpful. I got into it because I had to. I didn't have a choice. But once I started to study it, I loved it. Yeah.
So how do you ensure that you have the right person, like for sales and HR or those kind of roles?
Yeah.
And also there is this thing to do with personality.
For sure.
Clashing as a result of maybe I'm an introvert, extrovert, or I like to speak at some points. I don't know. Those are things that are real in a real workplace. I don't know how you have interacted with that.
Yeah, so I did a lot of, I played a lot of sports growing up as well, and so I had a lot of coaches. And so in addition to just work-related stuff, you know, having the background of having coaches helps me to understand motivation and how people might encourage. And I grew up a long time ago, so the coaches were much harder on us then than I think coaches are now. But as I watch kind of this coaching concept, when we get into overcoming our own maybe insecurities and our perceived lack of abilities, okay? So I believe that we probably stop ourselves much earlier than we probably have to. So I'll explain it a different way. I ride bikes. I'm a road cyclist. I ride bikes often. I love it for two reasons. One is it's a very data-rich sport. You can spend hours looking at data from cycling. You're cycling, right? Heart rate, how fast you're pedaling, how much power you're doing, etc. So I love the data aspect of it. But the other part of it is that it is truly an individual test. And for me, the opportunity to learn about myself is rich in cycling, okay? And one thing I learned was that when I started, I could only go so far and I could only pedal so hard, right? And then I would quit because I just didn't have it in me. But I forced myself through process to learn how to push myself farther than the moment that it said stop, right? So I would hear my legs telling me, stop, stop, stop. And I would push myself a little bit further, right? And then a little bit further. And then I realized something. I actually can do it. So it's not my legs telling me to stop, it's my brain telling me to stop, because my legs were still going. But I thought it was my legs, right? But it was my brain. Well, how much of that do we do in all of our lives? When is our brain telling us to stop and we think it's something else? Oh, I don't know how to speak in public, so I shouldn't be in a place where I'm having to give presentations. That's your brain telling you you can't do it. So I think we have to learn, I think if you want to, I think you can try to practice a discipline of pushing yourself just a little bit further and a little bit further, and you might find you're more of an extrovert than you thought you were. Your brain might be holding you back. Right? Now, I don't know how to play the piano. I don't think I'm going to be playing piano professionally, so I'm not saying that you can do anything you want, but I do think your brain stops you early. And I do coach a lot that we can go farther, usually go farther than we think.
Great.
So let's go for a bike ride. You want to go for a bike?
Most definitely.
I'm doing 160 kilometers now. So.
Or a scooter ride.
Or a scooter ride. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fun thing, but it's not for everyone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, George, you had a question, eh?
Oh, we have an audience question. Make one up.
Do you have any?
I'll go. So when you're getting a team,
Yeah.
so from your experience now, not them.
Okay.
So which department would you start with? Is it sales? Is it HR? Is it accounting? Is it legal? Is it a combination of the two?
So when I'm starting up a business, I don't go by department. Okay, so there's two things that matter the most to me. I'm going to switch my answer. There are three things that matter the most to me, okay? So one is the fact that I am already there, right? And so when I'm building a team, what I want to do is I want to build around what already exists. So the second hire, so I hired myself first, right? The second hire should be something that adds, not repeats me, right? If I hire myself again, I just have redundancy, right? So I really focus on someone who can be a strength in my weakness, and I'm pretty good now of knowing what that is, but I wouldn't say I was in the beginning. So don't get very caught up in that. Like you know enough of your strengths to know that there's probably a counter that you could look for, right? But you have to be compatible, right? But then also, I tend to hire first experienced people. So there's an idea that you start with lower cost or least or cheaper junior staff and bring them in. No, I will tend to be, when I'm starting a new business, experience matters. So I will usually recruit experienced people to surround me because we know how to work. We know how to work together. We can overcome conflict. We've done it before. I will usually try to find people who have been in entrepreneur opportunities before, because learning how to do that can be difficult, but sometimes that's not the important thing. It's learning just how to work that kind of thing out. So I start with experience. But the third thing I know is that I have to really understand the market I'm building into, and I need to hire into my organization for the market that I'm serving, right? So if I'm in aviation, but I'm starting a business that's ice cream sundaes, like bringing an engineer from Boeing probably is not the best move. He doesn't probably, maybe he does, but probably doesn't know much about ice cream. He may have a passion to eat it, but he doesn't know anything about ice cream otherwise. So making sure that you are hiring with a focus on your customer base, I think that's missed by many startups, right? Okay, so when you're looking at who you're bringing into the team, they need the same passion you do for that market. Yeah. That I did not do well either when I started it. I would just hire my friends. We had a blast, right? We were, it's great. You can spend time with your friends all day long. But I worked in one company where we had probably the most talented group of people I've ever seen, and we never ever got to the idea of becoming a company. And being a company means that you have customers and that you're selling products. It's a business. We're not just playing, we're a business. And there was a big company I worked for where it never actually got to that. And that was the biggest disappointment I ever found with a team, because the people in that team were brilliant. Some of the smartest and most innovative people I've ever found myself working with. Yeah. Good question though, that's a good.
Yeah.
I think for our next question.
So I'm going to answer Arnold's question. I think HR is one of the most important organizations in a business. You should outsource it completely. No, I'm just messing. You know what I think they should make, Arnold? Is a game for the PS5 that's called HR Expert. And it could be like a role-playing game where like you have to make decisions for companies and you go from like company to company and it's like the evil boss is like, you know, I'm not even going to go any further. This is being taped. What a game though for PS5, man. HR Expert. It could be like the next Legend of Zelda kind of thing, right? Like you could really do something with that.
Only get 10 subscribers. Everyone finds the chance.
Actually, you bring up an interesting thing, and there's always a debate of quality versus quantity. And if you only have 10 subscribers and they're paying you $1 million each, it isn't so bad, right?
Yeah.
And that's always a difficulty in terms of starting up a business, is to make a decision. Every company has to decide at some point, am I interested in volume or in quality, right? And there's not a bad answer between the two, but you have to make that decision. You can't do both. And one reason I see a lot of companies fail is that they try to bridge that line, and they wind up like the person doing the splits. You know, like it's painful, and ultimately you can't do it for long. And you have to make that decision. But I see a lot of companies that try to be, I'm going to sign up 1 million subscribers and I'm going to be the best solution in the marketplace. So I'm going to have the most customers and the best quality solution. Well, then that means you haven't charged enough because you're offering a great product at too cheap of a price. I would raise the price, right? Or I would stop working so hard and keep the 1 million subscribers. But you have to pick a side, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, Southwest Airlines in the United States is a great example. They billed themselves as low cost. They didn't want to be the airline that was trying to give you everything on board, right? But they were incredibly successful for many years. They were the most valuable airline in the United States. So you don't have to say quality means everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and low cost and no frills.
Yeah, and it worked. Remember, people, when you're out on the road, wear a lid if you're biking or on a motorcycle. And vaping is bad for you. It's no better than smoking. And if you ever come to the United States, no, I'm not going to finish that. Just stay in Kenya. It's much prettier here. It's so beautiful here. I mean, for real, it's gorgeous here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, I love it here.
So, any parting shot that you would want to say?
Don't do drugs. That's a joke in the US that we always do. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's wonderful that you're doing this. And I think, you know, we talk about different cultures in different places, but the reality is that people are people everywhere. Right. And that the idea of being an entrepreneur is the idea of being somebody who cares so much about something that you're willing to do something nobody else has.
Yeah.
And that kind of person exists everywhere. And they are a special person that should be called out, let's say, and you're doing that with this particular thing. And so thank you for that. It's really fun to talk about it. And I mean, the last couple of days spent with you, this is fun.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So next time we're in Chicago, yeah?
Please, it's minus 20 there right now, so yeah. Right. Who was talking about walking on water because of the frozen lakes? Yeah, that's true. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Otherwise, thank you very much. We appreciate
it's my pleasure,
we appreciate
really.
your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And giving us the opportunity to have this chat.
Indeed. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime. And I will ask you all the questions.
Most definitely.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So just before I let you go, something that comes to mind. So at what point, as an entrepreneur, do you now decide to have a board? And how do you go about selecting a board?
Oh, that's a great question. But while you said the word so this is how my brain works, so I'm just going to explain it to you. So while you said the word entrepreneur, I thought to myself, I think less than 50% of entrepreneurs can spell entrepreneur. That just came into my head. Okay. So to answer your question, I think that is a really interesting question in the sense that the purpose of a board of directors is to provide you with guidance and accountability. Okay, so as an owner of a company, because in a typical corporate board situation, the CEO is acting more as an accountable employee and less of an owner, right? So if you take that model and you put it into a place where the person who's so the CEO here is definitely not in a public company board situation, 100% owner. Over here, let's say it's 100% owner. So how do you build accountability and guidance over somebody who is 100% of the ownership of the business? It's a great question because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, I have found that I seek that guidance informally from the very beginning. So it was a great question because I hadn't thought of it until you asked it that way, but I will typically create an informal board around me when I'm doing this, okay, of people that I trust who are willing to be honest with me and give me that guidance and oversight. I formalize it eventually, but it really does depend on how the company is building. You don't want to start formalizing that too early, but you should really seek out an informal board from the beginning. I think you should do that.
So you start with your personal board of advisors.
Exactly, yeah. You have kind of a board of advisors. That's a great way of putting it. And it's often your own personal contacts at first, but like we're doing this with a particular application right now. As we're starting to grow, we're finding that there are people in the marketplace who are finding us and finding it interesting. And we're inviting them now to be a part of this because their voice isn't yet in our environment. So that's a fabulous question, and I'm glad you brought it up because I hadn't thought about it until now, but yeah, I do create that board of advisors usually before I decide to actually go forward. If I can't find people who will sit over me like that, then I think I find myself worried that I'm gonna
Mess things up. Okay.
As a road cyclist, I've had too many crashes that I've created myself to believe I can just start this and do it myself.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all that comes from.
I do think, and I think this was a question you asked earlier, was a question about the money. I think it really is interesting that I get often questions about, well, I want to start up this business, but I don't have any money. And I think there's less money needed to start something than you think. You can go a long way on something before you actually need to spend too much money. But I don't think people understand that. So I would encourage people, like, get that board around you that can give you the feedback on where you're going, because they will tell you, oh no, this is really good. Keep going. And if you go far enough, I talked about the thermometer earlier, it will read a number that gets other people interested, whether they're customers, which is usually the case, or investors, which can be harder. But customers first is the best way to start usually.
Though, is it dependent on the type of business that somebody wants to do? Because I find some enterprises more capital intensive than others. For example, if you want to do some level of manufacturing, unless you do trading first, you do trade before you get the equipment, then you will have to enter by looking for money to buy equipment.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tend to recommend for people that if it's a capital intensive opportunity, that doing it yourself probably is going to be a difficult proposition. So in the larger organizations that I've started from the ground up, we've had partnerships where we've brought a number of people together from the beginning to be able to do that. But yeah, I would say if it requires a lot of capital to get going, and it's your first time being an entrepreneur, that's probably a not ideal place to start. But if it is, and you have the passion for it, find somebody else who also has the passion and partner with them and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the rule is partner what you don't have and what you don't know.
Yeah, and with somebody rich.
Let's say what you don't have. So
Okay, so what you don't have yet. Yeah, what you don't have, what you don't know, and
partner.
yes,
Yeah.
I think it becomes much easier.
it does. But again, I don't ever try to do anything too easy, because then I feel like I haven't earned what was put forward. We're called to work. I mean, this is, I worry about the idea that retirement is the goal, because I really enjoy what I do. I love doing this. The idea of sitting somewhere and just not doing it doesn't feel better, right? This feels like a fun thing to keep doing. So I don't know if I'll ever retire.
You cannot take a sabbatical.
No. All I do is go into a different industry for a while. That's the way to do it. Or try out a new country. There's so much in this world. I mean,
Yeah, that's for
yeah,
sure.
you do need refreshment. I think the idea of a sabbatical is valuable in the sense of refreshment, and I think you do need that. And one thing that I do worry about with a lot of people is they feel that when I say work, I mean you should be in a 7 day a week, 15-hour a day type environment. No, we don't believe that. So the way, I have 2 boys who are just now into university, and this was something I didn't know until we had our children, but they don't grow in a straight line, right? Like, I mean, like, it's not like they're born and then they grow like a millimeter every day or like every week or whatever, and this is just what happens. Like, I kind of thought that was the case, but no, like what happens is like they start this size and then like a week later, overnight, they're like this size. And then like all of a sudden their clothes don't fit anymore, but it's in like, this sort of an environment, right?
Yeah.
By the way, companies do that too, right? So when you look at business cases and you see this like, this path, it never looks that way.
Yeah.
And so when you're starting to talk about growth, realize that growth doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in spurts. So you'll go a long time with nothing, and then all of a sudden this big rush, right? So keep yourself in mind that this is how life just all of life happens this way,
Well, that's right.
right? My children have taught me so much.
What would you tell? Okay, one, say that you don't see yourself retiring. So there are no retirement plans in the horizon.
No,
Completely.
no,
What?
no, I can't see it. I mean, look, man, like we've got robots and stuff coming. Like, I mean, there's so much fun stuff ahead of us. I mean, how are we going to stop doing it and just go sit in a chair and read a book? I mean, that feels like I'm just like giving up on the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to like get on my bike and bike 100 kilometers when I'm 80. Okay, I'll do 50. But I mean, the idea of just saying I'm done with working with people and engaging in the community and if they let me, I will do what I can for as long as I can, as long as I'm enjoying it. And I think the minute it's not enjoyable, I would stop. But I can't see a place where, I mean, every day I go to work, I meet a new person, literally. And every time I meet a new person, they teach me something. And I don't think there's a time in our life that we should ever stop that. the moment we stop learning is the moment we probably should retire. So I'm having too much fun. You plan for retirement, of course, financially, because you don't know if you get injured or something and there's some reason you have to stop. But I mean, I will gladly donate that money at the end of my life, or well, I won't have a choice, I'll be gone. But you know, I would love for that to go off to somebody else at the end of my life and not feel bad about it and just keep working as long as it is. Yeah, I don't think I'll have a choice in it. No. Oh, you guys. Yeah, you guys are great. You're asking great questions. These are great questions. It's like you brought your own audience with you. This is phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah. So I notice you don't use laces on your shoes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So do you know that I've done the case, you can save 18 hours a year not wearing laces on your shoes.
That's interesting.
That's almost a full day of your life that you get back by not lacing shoes. I'm talking to you guys.
No.
Well, yeah, but this is because I had to dress smartly for the interview today. Otherwise I'd be in normal flip-flops.
Normally there's Crocs.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. All right, well, thank you guys. This is good.
Yeah.
Did we get it? It's in the can? All right, great. This is great. Social media, oh no.
Not on any social media platform.
I'm on LinkedIn. You'd probably find...
WhatsApp, no.
Yeah, WhatsApp is not social media, though. That's just...
We call it social media.
No, that's just messaging.
Nah.
Yeah, that's just messaging. I am on WhatsApp, but... yeah. No. Do you think that's social media? Would that be... It's a way to give data to Mark Zuckerberg, for sure. But I wouldn't call it... I mean, well, now they've put Meta on it, so... Did you see they've added Meta to it? Yeah, just another way to collect more from us. Crazy. It just popped up one day. I was like, what? I haven't looked to turn it off, but...
No, but how would you time it?
Yeah, but here's the fun part, okay? I told you I'm an experimentation guy.
Yeah.
So I have an Alexa, an Apple Pod, and yeah, in 3 different places in my office. And so I will tell different things I will like whisper it into the different ones, different things, and then I look at my phone to see what the suggestions are. And then I know which one is controlling my phone at the moment.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that weird? I mean, all 3 of them have controlled my phone at different times. Yeah. So I've resolved myself that somebody knows everything about me. Yeah. So I don't worry about, I just don't do anything that you don't want somebody to know about. That's the suggestion, right? And just live a life that you don't have to hide and you're fine.
Yeah. Sure.
But I can't believe that I'm sure that there's a database somewhere of all sorts of things that people would rather not have had happen that were recorded. Yes, indeed. And don't bring your phone into the bedroom. Thank you. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Never thought about that.
But it is interesting because these Samsungs, the 5Gs one, you realize that this thing is giving you suggestions, and you're wondering, where is this thing here, or know that I'm interested in this thing. What you're saying is true.
Someone who said that they had thought of something and it popped up.
You don't realize that over the last week you used that word 16 times, and it's been counting. And at the right time, it...
It's helping produce. So if you check, you can
Yeah.
So, but you can uncheck. Of course, it will tell you the phone factor property testing. Understand your phone factor property. So you can set it to developers mode. And switch off. Like for example, which app? My
location.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
I had to call and put money for to get money and get it out.
They're both
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah, my picture. So all those things you can turn, and the guy is a very good guy. Just how to turn off all those things. Just 15
The permissions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the permissions are limited to. I mean, like, yes, that works, but
So
But
you
it-
can do quite a bit. Clear everything, but you will do quite a bit.
Though you realize these things are deliberately subtle in terms of communication, there's no communication about those things.
But there are apps
no, of course
that allow
not.
them to get another app that you have not subscribed to listen in.
Oh yeah.
So like all those things.
So you shouldn't worry. You're listening to it.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
But even if you turn it off on that app, there's probably a different app that's still collecting it, and they'll just collect it from that app.
Yeah. Google for sure. But now for you to when you check that for Google.
So this is actually a positive story. So I used to work for a company that was doing some work with the airlines, and you know turbulence when the airplane gets all bumpy. So we were asked to figure out a way to collect data from the aircraft that would be able to tell the airline when the airplane had gone through turbulence and how bad the turbulence was. On the aircraft are sensors that are able to collect that information, and there's a computer on board the aircraft that stores that information, and you can actually send it off the aircraft using some communications technology that exists on the plane. So you already have this whole system that can tell you if the airplane is going through turbulence. So we tried to get into this and to be able to collect this information, and because aviation is a safety business, what we found was that the regulators would not allow us to get access to this data. It was considered safety data, and so we weren't able to get access to this data. So then we all sat in a room and we said, hey, you know what? We've got like 130 people in the back of the plane, and I'm willing to bet that at least 50 of them have an iPhone. And an iPhone has an accelerometer on it. And they're all connected to Wi-Fi on the aircraft, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're in airplane mode, they're still connected to the Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
And so I've got 50 sensors on the plane that are accelerometers that could tell me that they've just dropped, right? And now I have my own tool now. I don't have to use the airplane. I can use the people in the back as my sensor when we start doing this work.
Yeah.
And so we said this to the regulators, and they said, okay, you can use the airplane. Because they didn't want us to use the data that was from the back of the plane. They wanted us to use that. But it's crazy. Like I talk often about the idea of a third option, and that's something I talk about all the time. So people are trained to believe there's two options in life. And I have found that in almost every moment there is a third option if you just stop and think about it for a moment. There is another way of doing something that you can come up with that will solve the problem. So don't be stopped by the two options. Find the third one. I mean, they opened it up and they created a new rule for us because they were really worried we were going to do something. And if we did that, then of course, everybody else would start thinking, what else could we do? And what else, how else could we make it work?
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't life fun? This is why I never want to retire. There's way too many of those things to still do in this world. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think what I just observed is you have fun with the problem solving.
Of course, yeah.
That is your why for entrepreneurship.
Yep. I love solving problems because it helps people, right? It helps people out, and I mean, what else is there better in this world, right?
Yeah.
Because I really hope that when I'm in trouble, people come and help me.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a place where you stepped out of your comfort zone trying to solve a problem? Sorry, the interview. But
Yeah. So I have a time management problem and I felt out of my comfort zone today. They're not paying attention over there. I'm constantly, so coaching, being a coach like you've seen me do with some of these workshops.
Yeah.
You have to not get high on yourself. Like you have to really be critical of yourself sometimes. And so that does require you getting out of your comfort zone. And so I do that in a couple of ways. One is I'm willing to talk to people that I don't know in places that I've never been, and in an honest way, and will expect that sometimes people will not like that. And that gives me a way of remembering that life can be hard if you operate it with honesty. Like, I really never want to tell somebody something that's not true. So I don't use all three of those options when I answer questions. I only have two. There are three available, I only use two, okay?
Yeah.
But getting out of my comfort zone, yeah, I mean, I pretty much do that my whole life, I think, because being an entrepreneur, like, you've got a passion for it, but it's never, I do things that haven't existed before. So when you look that way, you're totally outside of any comfort zone. I mean, when they built the Brooklyn Bridge, they didn't know what the bends were, right? So they were sending people down into these really deep caverns, and they were coming back up with pain, and nobody knew that. They didn't stop, they kept going, right? They learned how to deal with the problems and keep solving it. And when I look at where we've advanced humanity, it's through that, right? It's not through being safe. No. Patton, who was a general in the U.S. Army during World War II, I think it was him. I think he said something about a war has never been won playing defense.
Oh yeah.
Right? Right? Now you can slow people down and hopefully you have a friend, but you can't win. Right? Maybe the other team gives up, but you can't win. If you want to win, you can't play defense. And I think about that regularly, and it's not a thing most people will say, to be offensive and to be aggressive in this day and age, but it's so true. The world doesn't advance without somebody pushing.
That's right.
I mean, I played rugby. That the only way you get the ball forward is you got to push, right?
Yeah.
Especially rugby.
Yep. It's perfect sport to use for that, right?
Yeah.
You can't play defense and win on that. No, you can't. No, so,
No way.
yeah.
I aspired to play rugby. I entered that field, but I was slammed.
Tackle.
That was the end of rugby.
Yeah. You have to be a person willing to basically yeah, you have to be a little bit, yeah, you have to be insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually a compliment that you didn't make it. That's actually an indication of the rationale in your brain. Yeah. I remember the guy telling me for the first time that we should play, and he came the next day and he had a gash from here to here in his leg. And I said, it was stitches like from like half of his lower leg. And I said, what did you do? And he said it was a cleat that tore his whole skin from there to there down. He had 150 stitches. And he said, you're still coming on Saturday, right? And I said, yeah. So you were smart leaving that thing, right? All right, I'm going to have to get back to the hotel, guys.
Okay.